What's going on, guys? It's Bromley at Empire Barbell, and we are going to do a review of Geoffrey Verity Schofield's Sweat. It's a book that I stumbled across. Actually, when I was checking out the review he did of my book, I saw that he had his own book that he had on the Amazon Kindle store, and I decided to check it out, sifted through some of his content. Seems like a smart guy, like he knows what he's doing, so I thought I'd see what the book was about. And I read through it, was very impressed, and I thought I'd do a review on it. Unfortunately, we're in my living room today. I wanted to take advantage of this nice winter weather and film outside, but apparently every neighborhood kid got a trampoline for Christmas and nobody's in school right now. So everybody's outside making a whole bunch of noise, so I am stuck inside for today. So if you haven't already, go ahead and check out Schofield's YouTube channel. He's growing pretty fast. He's growing kind of in lockstep with what my channel was doing over the last couple of years. His book I saw in the Kindle store. I don't know if he has another store that he sells it from, but you might want to ask him that before you purchase, because if it's anything like mine, there's a bigger profit to be made if you purchase it directly from his store rather than on the Kindle store. So go ahead and check in with him on that. So his book is SWEAT, which stands for Special Workout Exercises and Advanced Techniques. I always love clever acronyms in the title. This book is big. It's 200 pages. There's a lot of information in it. I would call it dense, and the information is quality. In fact, I had to kind of check and make sure if my positive outlook on his book was really just because I saw a lot of my own beliefs and principles mirrored back at me. And there's a little bit of bias in there. But we agree on a lot of things, and I actually like the way he breaks things down. It kind of mirrors the way I conceptualize a lot of this stuff. But the first half of his book is exercise selection. He starts by going over muscle groups and giving examples of which movements are appropriate for each muscle group. So if you're newer, you're not used to conceptualizing movements that way, that can be very helpful. Then he goes over them again as far as movement pattern, which is a more productive way to put movements into a workout plan, because that's how we figure out how to group different exercises together. That's how we decide if there's, let's say, interference from two different movements, is by what pattern they work through. So then he goes down with each movement pattern and then outlines which muscle groups and which corresponding exercises fit into that movement pattern, which is how you're going to group them together in the training. Now, here's the thing that irritated me. And it irritated me for a very petty reason. So when I was writing my book, Base Strength, which you can get at empirebarbellstore.com or the Kindle store, I had written about 160 or so pages before I realized that I was losing track of my main mission, that it was getting too big. I was giving a lot of information just for the sake of information. It was unreadable. My main reason for writing the book is that I wanted to spotlight on a few very core takeaways that I thought were vital and were overlooked by a lot of the other books in the industry. And I wanted it to be entertaining, but in as much that it helped the person get the information down. I didn't want to just read like a textbook where it was just information for the sake of it. So I ended up having to chop off a lot of the book, and one of the pieces that I had was 30 pages of exercise selection I had to chop. One of the early reviews of my book was that there wasn't a lot of detail on exercise selection. So I'm saving that for later. I'm doing peak strength, and then there's going to be an entire book on lifts that's going to break down specialty exercises. But one of the things that I was excited to do with that was exactly what Schofield did in his book. And that's that he covered the difficulty, who it's appropriate for, and most importantly, the recovery costs. When I saw that, my eyes lit up, and I got a little bit of envy because he beat me to the punch, because I'm not entirely sure that there's any other publication that really addresses that. And that's a big problem when it comes to people conceptualizing these lifts, is how do you equate the work you do with something like a bench press with a board press or a pause bench or whatever else? And that's key. And understanding how much effort you put out on a lift is going to correspond to the total systemic hit you're going to take is really important. And you need to know how each lift differs from each other a little bit to get that down. So kudos to him. Now, the movements are very broad. I'm not sure who specifically he was writing for. I don't want to put words in his mouth. I know for me that the things I write are generally applicable to just about everybody interested in weight training. But I write with a specific lean of people who want to compete, who want to train primarily for increased physical performance. His prescriptions are broad, and I think that's a good thing for the audience I think he's writing for, because a big mistake with novices or people who are just starting out, even if you've been training for a while and you're new to focusing your training efforts to a singular goal, one of the big problems is over-specialization too soon, jumping in to all of the weak point attacking type of workouts where you're trying to do a bunch of exotic lifts, you're changing things too often, you're really majoring in the minor, so to speak. So early on, you want to build a wide base. That means more variation of movements, but the movements themselves should be broader. They should float more boats. So not doing things that are hyper specific, doing things that carry over to more things in general is how you're going to build that base, flesh it out. So in his book, he covers a lot of different exercises, from partials to increased range of motion to machine work to unilateral work, even plyometrics. He'll have, different jump variations and stuff thrown in. So there's a lot of good foundational exercises in here that are going to eventually make the backbone of anybody who will eventually pivot into a more competitive arena. This kind of reminds me of what Arnold's bodybuilding encyclopedia was, that except more focused into like the modern lifting era, where there's a bigger emphasis on strength sports rather than sheer bodybuilding. The list of exercises are a good resource for just about anybody, and that's something you're going to use and go back to, repeatedly for as long as you're lifting. But then he gets into the piece on programming, where he does a good job breaking down the different variables that go into programming. He talks about diminished returns, how you get more benefit from doing more work up to a certain point, and then the return is very much the same. So it's an appeal to not spend endless hours in the gym, to be a little bit smarter, more calculated with your programming. He gives charts, his recommendations on how many working sets a beginner, intermediate, or advanced lifter would do. He breaks down intensity and frequency, and he does a good job of giving a variety of set and rep recommendations without it taking up too much time or really being overly complicated. These are all very proven schemes. They've been around for a while, they work very well, and you can milk them for a very long time. So I actually like how that's kind of short and concise, because it takes a lot of the guesswork away. It's like, pick one of these and go to work. If you're newer, this is going to be a good launching point that's going to allow you to throw together workouts by pairing appropriate exercise together, working in a good margin that's not going to be really too much or too little, and then following a prescription of sets and reps with an understanding of how much difficulty each set and each workout should have relative to the other ones. And that's going to set you up for good habits down the road. I even like that he gets into some of the more fun kind of old school bodybuilding advanced methods like rest pause sets, drop sets, isometric, stuff like that. It's not only that those are effective methods for increasing stress and getting an adaptive response from your body, but it keeps training fun. And for most people, that's actually really crucial to keeping their butts in the gym for a long time. Now, what's really valuable is a piece at the end of the book where he goes over injury, where he gives the most common examples of why people get injured and what different types of pain means. So this is actually very helpful, because in general, there's an idea that you shouldn't give medical advice if you're not a doctor. But when it comes to training, there has to be some method of autoregulation to know how severe or non-severe an incident is, because over a lifetime of training, you're going to feel a lot of different things. There's times where you will feel pain where it turns out to not be that substantial and is just part of the normal wear and tear of the job. And there's times where something that you might be inclined to ignore could be very substantial. So being able to identify in yourself what you're feeling, where the discomfort is, what it means, and what type of caution you should use when moving forward, that is extremely useful, and all lifters need to know it. If we just relied on the recommendations of Western medicine, nobody would lift, because anybody who's ever had to go to the doctor for a herniated disc or a blown tendon, they know that the doctor does the same thing. They give you opiates, anti-inflammatories, and they tell you to stop lifting. And that's really not an option. You're not better off for that advice. So being able to have kind of a conceptual understanding of the ranges of injuries that you're going to get, the likelihood that you're going to get them, and more importantly, which ones you can prevent by not training like an idiot, that's really valuable. So I was really happy to see him touch on that, because given how I beat the hell out of my body in my early years, that's a topic that's really near and dear to my heart. And then the book finishes at the end with some easy templates that anybody can follow. He brackets them off into a few different varieties that seem to take into account the needs of the individual lifter that's going to follow them. I can't really say enough about this book. It's solid. It's really good. And given the fact that it's like $8 on the Kindle store or something absurd like that. It's like, Geoffrey, bro, you're making us look bad. How am I supposed to make a living when you're selling your book for a third as much as mine? When it comes down to it, if you're new to lifting, I think that is a very valuable resource. And if you're not new to lifting, the price point is going to be worth it, just to see if there's different ways of conceptualizing things you're already used to doing, to see if you can maybe look at it a different way and connect dots that maybe you hadn't connected before. There's good information, it's well written, he's very thoughtful in the way that he approaches things, and there is a cohesive structure. I think that's a valuable training manual for just about everybody to refer back to periodically. If you like the content that we're putting out, if you like guys that are, prioritizing honesty and integrity in their work, who aren't the same old industry shills, who aren't selling snake oil, go ahead and show the dude some love. Go pick up his ebook, because it is really well done. And actually, it kind of reminded me to step my game up a little bit. So I think I'm going to take an extra month or two than I was planning to get this next one out, to make sure it's as hardy as it should be. Because this one clocks in at about 200 pages, and it's not size 19 font with you know, a picture taking up each page. Like, it's dense, it'll take you a while to read through it, and you're going to want to refer back to it periodically. So that's all I got for today, guys. Remember, you can pick up my book, Base Strength, at my store, EmpireBarbellStore.com, and that's going to have the PDF and paperback edition available. The Kindle store, if you have a Kindle or if you like shopping on Amazon, has a ebook version available as well, so you can check it out there. If you are so inclined to leave a review, it is greatly appreciated. And if you happen to pick up Geoffrey's book, do him a solid and review his as well, because that goes a very long way in making sure that our material ranks so we can beat out some of the other 99-cent fluff that gets put up that steals the spotlight. Thanks for watching, guys. Till next time, this is Bromley at Empire Barbell. I'll see you.